Welcome to the Explainer. So, if you're a Business Central consultant or a developer, I bet you know this drill all too well. A user comes to you, they need a specific data breakdown, and our immediate, knee-jerk reflex, we build a custom report. Well, today we're flipping the script. We are going to walk step by step through exactly how you can replace those clunky legacy reports using Business Central's analysis mode. It's a total game changer.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 6 key areas: the decision rule, tutorial 1 on top customers, tutorial 2 covering vendor balances, tutorial 3 on inventory movements, then we'll dive into workshop strategy, and finally, we'll talk about boundaries. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The decision rule.
Okay, so here is the golden rule, the absolute heuristic you need to burn into your brain before you write even one more line of custom report code. Ask yourself, is this report existing mostly just to answer a question, or is it actually trying to produce a formal document? If the user just needs an answer to a business question, analysis mode is, without a doubt, your best option. It really is that simple.
Moving on to Section 2, Tutorial 1, Top Customers. All right, think about the old workflow for a second. A user runs a report, they export it, and then they spend the next hour wrestling with Excel filters. The report basically becomes this rigid bottleneck. And honestly, we all know the pain of watching clients stubbornly cling to their messy, outdated spreadsheets, right? Well, the new way, we're ditching Excel entirely. Instead, we are drilling straight into live ledger entries and saving these instantly reusable views. No more data dumps.
In building this, it literally takes just a handful of clicks. You start by opening up your customer ledger entries, getting right to that raw data, and you just flip the toggle switch to activate analysis mode. Boom, you're in. Next, you're going to group your data by customer number and grab the remaining amount field, making sure to set that to sum. To finish the whole thing off, just sort it descending so the absolute highest values float right up to the top, and save your new tab as top customers. Just like that, you have entirely replaced a static report.
Now, let's be totally transparent here. Analysis mode does not have some hard-coded top N setting that's going to strictly limit your output to exactly, say, 10 rows. You're simply sorting and filtering the top rows of a much larger data set. So if your client comes to you with a super strict requirement for a rigid, locked-in top 10 output, maybe they need it for an automated email distribution or some highly specific scheduled task, well then a classic report is still absolutely the better choice. You've got to use the right tool for the job.
All right, Section 3, Tutorial 2, Vendor Balances. If you've been a consultant for more than a week, you definitely know this particular pain point. The finance team runs a massive month-end report, and then what do? They rerun the exact same report 3 days later just to change a single date parameter. It is so incredibly frustrating for everyone involved. The new way, though, completely eliminates that. It lets us adjust dates dynamically and compare different periods instantly. And the best part? You never have to stare at a loading screen again. Here is how we build it. First, open up those vendor ledger entries and go ahead and activate analysis mode. You'll want to group by vendor number and sum up the remaining amount. Okay, now for the actual magic. You add the posting date and utilize the date hierarchy feature. This is huge because it lets you effortlessly roll the data up by year, by quarter, or by month. Just filter it down to your desired period, save the view, and you are totally done. It really is that fast.
Which brings us to Section 4, Tutorial 3, Inventory Movements.
You know, static reports have a terrible habit of hiding the exact patterns we're actually trying to look for. I mean, trying to find slow-moving items buried in a massive static list, it's an absolute nightmare. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. But this new approach gives you total interactive exploration. It lets you spot trends and adjust your groupings on the fly without ever having to go back and tweak the original report designer. Let's look at inventory. Open the item ledger entries and flip on analysis mode. But this time, we are going to create a multi-level group by item number and by location. Sum up your quantity and then group the posting date by month. Finally, here's the trick. Use pivot mode on the month. What this does is stretch the dates right across the top, instantly creating a matrix where you can visually scan for inactive or slow-moving items over time. It is incredibly powerful and, frankly, it looks great too.
Moving on to Section 5, Workshop Strategy.
Okay, so here is the million-dollar question, right? You've got this great, shiny new tool, but users are creatures of habit. They get really comfortable with their old routines. If a client is super used to getting a PDF or a highly specific Excel layout every Friday, how do you actually convince them to embrace analysis mode without totally overwhelming them?
The absolute best way to introduce this, it's not a PowerPoint deck, it's a live demo. When you're running a workshop, simply ask the client for a report they use all the time and just rebuild it live, right in front of them, using analysis mode. Start literally dragging columns around and ask them, hey, what if we looked at this by region instead? Seeing their old clunky report replaced and manipulated in real time, that completely changes their expectations right then and there.
The practical consequences of making this shift are just massive for both you and your client. First off, you've got way fewer custom reports to design, to code, and to maintain over the long haul. Second, your workshops suddenly become incredibly fast and highly interactive because you're working with their actual live data, not some theoretical mockup. But honestly, the biggest benefit is the third one. The users themselves gain the confidence to answer their own follow-up questions. Instead of logging a support ticket every single time they want a slightly different view, they actually feel empowered to explore the data on their own. The discussions finally shift away from tedious, endless arguments about report layouts to really meaningful conversations about understanding the actual data.
Now, for section 6. Boundaries. As great as this all is, classic reports absolutely still win out in some very specific scenarios. Let's be real. If you need a strict fixed layout, or if you need external distribution like sending a statement out to your vendors, or if you need a permanent archived record for compliance reasons, you need a classic report. No way around it. The exact same thing applies to highly complex mathematical calculations or statutory documents like legal invoices. Analysis mode is not for those. So, to maintain your client's trust, you really want to avoid a few key pitfalls. Never pitch analysis mode as a 100% catch-all replacement for a proper, full-scale reporting solution. Never ignore legal or audit requirements just because you want to use a cool new feature. Don't try to replace those automated distribution reports. And finally, please don't oversell its performance on utterly massive data sets. Being totally transparent about these boundaries is exactly what proves your true expertise to a client. Ultimately, analysis mode fundamentally changes our default response to data requests. So the very next time a user asks you for a brand new report, I want you to challenge them and challenge yourself by asking, what is it we actually want to understand here, rather than which report do we think we need? Because focusing on understanding the data, that unlocks a vastly more powerful way of working. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now get out there and start analyzing.